The Corcu Loígde, meaning gens of the calf goddess, also called the Síl Lugdach Mac Itha, were a kingdom centered in West County Cork who descended from the proto-historical rulers of Munster, the Dáirine, of whom they were the central royal sept. They took the name from Lugaid Loígde, Lugaid of the calf goddess, a king of Tara and High King of Ireland, son of the great Dáire Doimthech, a descendant of Lugaid Loígde, and the most famous ancestor is the legendary Lugaid Mac Con, who is listed in the Old Irish Baile Chuinn Chétchathaig.Closest kin to the Corcu Loígde were the Dál Fiatach princes of the Ulaid. Overview. The Corcu Loígde were the rulers of Munster, and likely of territories beyond the province, until the early 7th century AD, when their ancient alliance with the kingdom of Osriga fell apart as the Eoganachta rose to power. Many peoples formerly subject to the Corcu Loígde then transferred their allegiance to the Eoganachta, most notably the influential Muskrage, an Erin people related only very distantly to the Corcu Loígde. The Muskrage became the chief facilitators for the Eoganachta in the rise to power. Acute interference has also been suggested as a major factor, motivated by a desire to see no more kings of Tara from the Corcu Loígde. However, from Aemond, daughter of Oengus Bolg, the Corcu Loígde are related to the inner circle of the Eoganachta through a legendary marriage, as she became the wife of Conall Cork. They enjoyed a privileged status in the history of the new dynasty. As former rulers of the province, the Corcu Loígde were not a tributary kingdom, a status also enjoyed by the Osriga. In the 12th century they had the kingdom erected into the diocese of Ross, and their O'Driscoll lords played a significant maritime role in the region. Coffey, O'Leary, Hennessy, and Flynn were other families of importance, as well as the literary family of Dineen, O'Hay, Cronin, Dunley, and other families also may belong to the Corcu Loígde. A substantial part of the profitable maritime lands once dominated solely by the Corcu Loígde were incorporated into the medieval barony of Carbery, in which the O'Driscolls would retain some status as one of the three princely families underneath the McCarthy rears. Some of the western portion of the territory became the barony of Bantry. See also School of Ross. Legendary pedigree. Several of the following were misplaced chronologically by later medieval synchronists. Bolg Dáire Doimthech A Dáirine Lugaid Loígde Corcu Loígde Mac Con Macnia Lugaid Oengus Bolg equals Coil Ui Bilknath Iatascal O'Driscoll Main U Main Liaden equals Lunya Kieran of Sigir Aemond equals Conall Cork Duach Gurian Conall Clone Thrain Oengus Ui Ingusa Maki IRCCEO Chade Bad Omna Fodded Chétchathaig and Fodded Egdage Rectade Rigdig Eochade et Gardach. Another Irish meic belonging to the Corcu Loígde was Eochade Apthach. But if in any way historical, he has not only been misplaced chronologically but cannot be even placed in the above pedigree due to the extensive corruption of the supposed generations preceding Bolg. It was early noted by John O'Donovan and has been noted repeatedly by all his successors that the Corcu Loígde genealogies are among the most confused in the entire Irish corpus, so the above scheme should be understood with it in mind. One important generation not reproduced here is that of Dáire, the most recent common ancestor of the Dál Fiatach and Dáire of Ulster and Scotland in several official pedigrees. However, variants of his name can be found in the early generations of several Corcu Loígde pedigrees. Deagmanrach, Deadmanra and Degadag. Legend and history. A peculiar fact about the Corcu Loígde is their almost total lack of political activity following the early Middle Ages. Having formerly held sway over a vast territory, they appear to have almost completely disintegrated over the course of the 7th century, never making any serious attempts to recover what was at the time the largest kingdom in Ireland. Thus, over the next centuries, the former grandeur became more and more the stuff of legend, around which the younger kingdoms built their own origin legends. The most well-known tale in this cycle is the Chétchathaig Mucrama, satellite kingdoms, former satellite kingdoms of the Corcu Loígde, and who may once have been closely related to them, were probably the early medieval sister kingdoms of Ulaid and Ulaid. Evidence for this is that not only do they appear to have been artificially attached to the stem of the Eoganacta, whose own pedigree is very unreliable before Conall Cork, but that important early septs like the Uiduach of Osriga cannot be definitively attached to the lines of either the Ulaid Figinti of the Corcu Loígde. In addition, there were an early line of O'Learys attached to the Figinti. Later centuries. By the late 16th century, the two most prosperous families remaining were the O'Learys princes, with several castles in and around Baltimore, including Dunaside Castle, and the O'Learys, who had built several castles south of Macroom. The O'Learys and Baltimore. The history of the O'Learys clan and the seaside village of Baltimore are inextricably linked. The first historical mention of the O'Learys clan occurs in the Annals of Innisfallen, where the death in 1103 of Conor Chétchathaig, king of Corcu Loígde, was recorded. The surname O'Driscoll is an anglicised form of the Gaelic O'Learys, which has the meaning of diplomat or interpreter. The originator of the name is thought to have lived in the 9th century. Prominent in the village today is the restored castle of Dunaside, which was an O'Learys stronghold built around 1600 as a fortified house, probably by Sir Fianna O'Learys, who was a knight of Queen Elizabeth I. As the power of the Corcu Loígde alias Dáirine as kings of Munster, Tara, and a large part of Ireland faded in the Dark Ages, their empire broken up. The centre of political power shifted south into the wild country of West Cork, or Roscarbery as it is known in local history, and this is where the O'Driscoll clan has been prominent throughout history. Baltimore is a strategic harbour town on Roaring Water Bay located west of Kinsale and east of Mizen Head. Baltimore Harbour is protected by two offshore islands, Cape Clear to the west and Chuinn Island. During the medieval period, which was the height of the O'Learys' influence, they had fortresses on these islands as well as near Lough Ine, which is a saltwater lake on the nearby coast to the east of Baltimore. The O'Learys' heritage is territorially associated with these lands around Baltimore, and an oral legend has it that if any seafarer were to land on the islands of Chuinn clear of the mainland of West Carbery, that an O'Learys would require payment of a dockage fee. The O'Learys were historically a seafaring clan who had up to 100 sailing vessels in the fleet, which were used in both fishing and policing the local waters. The O'Learys in this era were known to trade extensively with France, Portugal and Spain. Merchant ships, whether they were foreign or from neighbouring towns such as Waterford, when sailed into O'Learys waters, were sometimes considered fair game. Sir Fianna is remembered locally as somewhat of a rogue, since as a political expedient he opened the local lands to English planters, and in doing so saved his homelands from falling to local invasion by the local O'Mahony, O'Leary and McCarthy clans, with the help of the English whose fleet he harboured. Sir Fianna himself was driven in his dotage to live on a small island in Lough Ine as a recluse, and oral history claims that he grew rabbits' floppy ears. He is said to have died in England or Spain on a mission to Queen Elizabeth I, whose death preceded his own. His heirs may have survived in Baltimore and abroad but were never again political chiefs in the historical era. Several years after Sir Finian's demise, the village of Baltimore suffered a catastrophic defeat as recorded in the annals of Kinsale, when it was sacked in 1631 by Algerian mercenaries led by Dungarvan man John Hackett, who was later hanged for this crime of revenge. Legend has it that Hackett's boat was seized by the Algerians and that he refused to guide them into Kinsale but instead led the Barbary Coast pirates to Baltimore, claiming its reach possibly because of the historical dispute between Waterford and the Shoals. Ironically, nearly all of the 107 captives that were taken from Baltimore by the Turks were for the most part the English planters, who were made into galley slaves or harem girls, and only 2 of whom were ever returned to Ireland. The Shoals appear to have survived the sack of Baltimore quite well, either in the offshore islands or by clinging to the highlands of the hill overlooking Baltimore's Cove where the pirates landed, or retreating to the surrounding hollows at the upstream town of Skibbereen. To the current time, the Shoals claim ownership of the hill in Baltimore as well as many lots and farms in the islands as well as on the nearby River Illan and to many other properties in West Cork. The O'Learys, or Liff O'Leary, joined the side of Hugh O'Neill, 2nd Earl of Tyrone in the 9 Years' War. Art O'Leary, immortalised by his widow Evelyn Dovney Chonal in the Coan Adair Tweed Leary. Peter O'Leary, celebrated Irish language writer and descendant of the Lords of Carignan-Acura. French wine. Corcu Loígde trade with France dates from the Middle Ages. The Shoals are known from an early time to have had a trading fleet active along the French Atlantic coast in the Bay of Biscay, as far south as Gascony, importing wine back to the region and into Munster. Hennessy Cognac. After serving as a mercenary for Louis XV of France, the Corcu Loígde nobleman Richard Hennessy would establish his famous Hennessy Cognac on land given him by the king in compensation. Several of his descendants have gone on to distinguish themselves in French politics, notably Jean Hennessy. Sites of interest. Corcu Loígde DNA project.